Hello, welcome to another episode of Cotton. And today my guest is Rajesh Mahapatra. Rajesh, I welcome you to our program. And Rajesh is an economics journalist, and he was editor, Press Trust of India. Then he worked a very senior position with Hindustan Times and Associated Press, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's also a public policy analyst. And it's because his training is in economics. He studied in Delhi University from and in JNU. So he has also seen how India, the Indian economy has transformed in recent decades. So today we are of course here to discuss with him the tariff war between India and USA. Actually, it's not war, it's the tariff imposed, one sided tariff imposed by Donald Trump on India, and which is being now implemented from their side. So, before actually we go into the details, first, for my viewers, I would like to know from you what is this tariff and how is it actually affect trade and businesses.
So, simply put, tariff is a tax that a country, the government of a country, imposes on all goods and services that the country imports from outside. So, when Indians or Indian companies buy goods and services from Britain, America, Japan, China, the Indian government taxes them. It's called tariff, which in other language we know as customs duty. Similarly, when US imports goods and services from India, the US government levies a tax on the commodities. Now, all the countries in the world, most countries of the world, are part of something called the World Trade Organization. And the World Trade Organization is a rule-based system that kind of decides the basic principle of World Trade Organization is that every country is a most favored nation for the other country if it is a member of WTO. Most favored nation means you do not discriminate. If I impose 4% tariff on import of, let us say, automobiles from China, I will impose the same 4% tariff on automobile imports from the United States. What the US President Donald Trump has done, he has completely dispensed with the World Trade Organization and the philosophy and the principles that underlie the functioning of the World Trade Organization, which was built through many negotiations. A lot of hard work had gone into it. What he did was he said America imposes much lower tariffs on imports from different countries, but these other countries impose very high tariffs on imports from America, which is why Americans end up consuming mostly imported goods. And because they find it cheaper, and because Americans end up consuming imported goods, therefore, nobody tries to manufacture those goods in America, which is why American manufacturing has not grown as fast as it should have grown in the past few decades. He wants to reverse that. His slogan is, I want to make America great again, MAGA, make America great again. And a major plank of this MAGA campaign is how do we revive manufacturing in our country? How do we start bringing back those jobs which have now traveled to other parts, countries like China, India, where people manufacture and export them to United States, and the American consumer finds them cheaper because America has got very low duties. whereas these countries have very high duties, and Americans can't sell as effectively as the Chinese or Indians do in the American market. So therefore, he said, I will now, whichever country, whatever tariff it is imposing on me, I will match that tariff. This is how he started in the month of April. Okay. They reached at certain calculations. He started imposing different levels of tariffs, announced different level of tariffs for different countries. Not like the principle of WTO that every country has to be treated as a most favored nation. So, for example, on textiles, apparel, which is a major commodity that we export to America, we were paying taxes at around 13.9% on knitted apparel, 10.3% on woven apparel, 9% on ready-made apparels, and that was the rate that was applicable to every country, most exporters. Now he said, look, I don't care for that. I will now impose a very different tariff rate for India, and I will impose a very different tariff rate for Bangladesh, uh, depending on what kind of tariff rates those countries are imposing on my exports. That's how he announced a set of tariffs in the month of April. And then there was, as you know, a lot of halabulla all over the world. And then he said, okay, I have made this announcement. I'm not going to impose it now. I'll hold on to it for 90 days. I'm giving you 90 days time. Come back to me with certain offers as to how you will reduce your tariff rates on US goods. The US goods that you are importing from you are importing into your country, how will you lower the duties on that? I will see what you are offering, and accordingly, I will decide whether I want to revise my announcement or not. Okay, this is how it all began in April. He put a 90-day moratorium on that. That 90-day moratorium kind of ended in the first week of July. And we had been trying to get a trade deal. Many countries in this period tried to strike a deal. Several of them did strike a deal, and he lowered the duties on those countries. With several countries did not bother about it, so they continue to attract the duties that Donald Trump announced. Then with India, for some reason, the trade deal that we started also negotiating wasn't going too well. We will talk about it a little
Can,
later.
can I here? Can I just intervene a little bit? Now, when you are saying that this World Trade Organization and the most favored state, now, so America, the US, they can ignore it. Is it? Are they in a position to ignore it?
That's a very good question. It's tricky. Uh, a member nation decides to go on its own, so long as other countries do not gang up, it can still be part of the WTO. What Donald Trump has done is he has made WTO irrelevant because after his threat, every country started negotiating. The European Union started negotiating, the United Kingdom started negotiating, Japan started negotiating, China started negotiating, India started negotiating. So who is left in World Trade Organization? The African countries, the smaller countries, their voice doesn't matter. So the big players all started negotiating with the United States.
So yeah.
In a
So
way,
that
they
means yeah.
endorsed Trump, right? In a way, they endorsed Trump's attempt to set aside WTO. So that's where things stand.
So that means there is at the moment the World Trade Organization recommendations, their principles, they will not apply to any major countries. WT things will not be applied to any major countries.
It applies, but the US has chosen to defy it. And World Trade Organization is not an organization which can penalize, right? It can, member nations can come together, they can challenge this. So, they can challenge within the WTO, they can challenge what Donald Trump has done. But every major member nation of the WTO is now busy striking a deal with Donald Trump. So, when you
So
are
then
trying,
what has happened to this WTO,
it
World
has
Trade
become
Organization?
completely irrelevant in this issue. So, the biggest casualty of Donald Trump's action is the World Trade Organization. And what did World Trade Organization stood for? World Trade Organization stood for multilateralism. So multilateralism has become a victim of Donald Trump's action. Now he is bilaterally dealing with every country. And when he bilaterally deals with every country, because the United States is the most economically powerful country, so when you do a bilateral deal, obviously the stronger country has an upper hand, which is exactly what is happening with America.
So I think this action of U.S. president, it will also have, you see, different. It will adversely affect the foreign relations the among the countries or different countries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The biggest casualty of it is trust of different nations, their leaders, and their people in the United States and its leadership. Today, everybody is forced to deal with Trump, but nobody trusts Trump. Because of his actions around the world, businesses, people, governments are faced with a lot of uncertainty and the kind of uncertainty that they have not seen. Now, take the case of India. We were, after the initial announcement of Trump, our government said, look, we are one of the first ones to have approached the American government for a trade deal. And we are making good progress. So, in the month of April, if you remember, the stock market had plunged. But the hope that India and US will strike a deal led to the stock market bouncing back. Businesses and industry started nurturing hope that our government will be able to strike a deal and we will not be put to the kind of hardship that Donald Trump is threatening. But what happened? Up until end of July, we were talking about how we are making good progress, how a team led by the US trade representative, which is equivalent of our commerce minister, is going to come to India to negotiate the final stages of a trade deal. And then suddenly what happens? In the first week of August, within days, Donald Trump first announces that I will impose a 25% tariff, additional tariff on India. And then few days later, he says, I will impose another 25% because India is importing Russian oil, and by importing Russian oil, it is aiding the war against Ukraine. So I will put a penalty of 25%. So what he did within the span of 10 days, he announced 50% additional tariff over and above the MFN tariff that already is in place, right? And then he cancels the trip of the US TR to India. So, in other words, suddenly up until end of July, all our industry and businesses were hoping that a trade deal is just about to happen. And come August, there is no sign of a trade deal.
No. Just now, first I would like to know, before this imposition of 50% tariff on Indian goods, how was the position between the trade deal between India and the US?
The tariffs on imports from India into US were very low. I mean, for example, uh, let me tell you some sectors which are going to be now hit the most because of this 50% and the sectors that matter to us the most. For example, we export nearly $5.4 billion worth, which is, you can say, almost 50,000 crore worth of our exports are that of apparels, knitted and woven, which earlier attracted tariff rate of 13.9% and 10.3%.
Only
Now,
13 and 10.
10. And today, there is 50% additionality, which means today knitted apparel draw 63.9% tariff and woven apparel draw 60.3% tariff and ready-made garments attract 59% tariff today.
Yeah.
Earlier, ready-made garments attracted 9% tariff, and we exported $3 billion worth of ready-made garments also.
One thing I just, because for my own clarification and also the clarification of our viewers, nothing is that okay, when the earlier the tariff on clothes and related materials, it was only say 10 and 13%. So that
Mhm.
means the accordingly the prices of those clothes were much cheaper for the American consumers, isn't it? Now, when they have actually raised it, they have raised it now to 50%. Now, how will these things will be priced, and what would its effect in America?
So let's take, for example, take ready-made garments. Let's say a pair of jeans. You sold it for $100 in America. You shipped it to $100. Earlier there was 9% tariff on it. So it was $109. Now let us say Sri Lanka or Bangladesh exported that pair of jeans. Let's say they exported that pair of jeans for 110 rupees. And they also attracted a 9% tariff because that's the MFN tariff. So Sri Lankan jeans or Bangladesh jeans would cost the American consumer about $120. So against Bangladesh jeans, $120, or a jeans exported from Sri Lanka, $120, if the Indian jeans was costing $110, so we had a competitive advantage. So the consumer would be tempted to buy our jeans. Now, what has happened? The new tariff, the additional tariff Trump has imposed, let us say for Bangladesh, let us say it is 20%. So 20% and the previous 9%, effectively, let us say 30%. So even if his pair of jeans is getting shipped out at $110, 30% tariff makes it still $140. But the Indian pair of jeans, which was $100, shipped at $100, lower than the rate that Bangladesh shipped, it is attracting 60% tariff. So the Indian pair of jeans will cost $160. So the American consumer will be tempted to buy the $140 jeans. And that's where the Indian exporter loses out to the Bangladeshi exporter.
Very
Which
simple.
is
But yeah, it's very simple. That means the India, actually Indian exporters, they are going to lose a big market.
So there are two things that happen. One, a higher tariff on India compared to its competing countries. So, for example, in textiles, we are competing with Vietnam, we are competing with China, we are competing with Sri Lanka, we are competing with Bangladesh, and all these countries are now attracting lower tariffs than us. So, our competitive advantage is dented. That is one way it impacts. The second is tariffs, higher tariffs as such, are increasing the general prices of jeans. So when price increases, the consumers there would tend to spend less because with the money that they can buy less. So overall import demand in the US declines, and then on top of that, the competitive advantage of Indian exporters in comparison to the competing exporting countries goes down because India today Trump has imposed the highest level of tariff on India, 50%. That's more than twice the tariff he has imposed on countries that compete with us in the US market.
So now, I actually, my understanding of economics, it's very, you see, but as an ordinary person, uh, how I understand things economics is that it's actually economics is a science of equilibrium. To me, economics is a science of equilibrium, and if this equilibrium is, you see, hugely disturbed, then it will things will go haywire and it will affect almost everything. Now, so before I come to another important questions, I just wanted to know one thing from you. You, of course, you explained these things a little while ago. Now, this parity, that is most favored nation thing, which this World Trade Organization is saying, I think uh, it's a general question. I don't want you to spend more time on it, but still, it has just come to my mind. Uh, some kind of equilibrium, some kind of balance. Don't you think that it is necessary for the overall growth of, you see, economy all over the world?
Sorry, come again.
Now I'm saying that some kind of balance, some kind of harmony, some kind of balance, equilibrium, don't you think that it is necessary for the overall growth of our economy all over the world?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what? So now, for example, there is no as far as US as far as US is concerned, there is no MFN, there is no most favored nation, there is NFT and NNFT, nations favored by Trump and nations not favored by Trump. And and this changes by hour. Suppose in the morning Donald Trump thinks he doesn't like XYZ country, he drops by the evening, he drops it from favored by Trump category to not favored by Trump category. So, so here is a man who is extremely unpredictable. Here is a man who follows no logic. Here is a man who is extremely unpredictable, but he's the man who is spearheading the world's largest economy. The United States accounts for 25% of the world's GDP, almost a quarter of world's GDP. So, therefore, whatever happens vis-a-vis the US economy impacts the global economy. And when you have a person who is deciding everything about the world's largest economy is so unpredictable, so uncertain, and so whimsical, what it does, it creates an environment of uncertainty and, as you said, instability. And what happens because businesses want predictability. Unless there is
It's
predictability,
predictability, it is building of trust. Building of
trust,
trust.
because when businesses are putting in money, so for example, let us take the example again of textiles. Tirupur is one of our largest textile exporting hubs, right? In Tirupur, every day you are producing, every factory is producing textiles, apparels, garments, right? Now, how many shifts do I run? How many machines do I run? These decisions every day are made on the basis of what is the pipeline of demand I have, right? And when the to give you the why I'm talking about the textiles, you have to understand more than a third of our textile exports actually go to US market. It's almost close to 40% of our textiles exports. The $7.4 billion or 65 to 70,000 crore worth textile exports that we send to US is nearly 40% of our total exports, textile exports. 40% of our every second almost every second garment we produce is going to the United States. Now, when there is uncertainty about tariffs, okay, now everybody says, look, at this tariff, I cannot supply. My buyer in the US is not willing to buy from me. So what do I do? I stop my machines, I stop my people from working, and suddenly 1 month later, Trump might withdraw this tariff. We don't know.
Then
So
what happens?
I can't scale down my plant. I can't throw away my people. So
But you are raising some very serious questions affecting our economy. Now, before I come, I want you to elaborate on this. I want to know from you, why did Trump, Donald Trump, do this, and why did he bring the question of Russian oil import by India? I
so the
shall I shall come to you about the impact of this thing, but
so
before that,
So the first question I think I have answered. The understanding that he won the election on the MAGA campaign, Make America Great Again, which premised,
explained,
yeah,
but about the
the
Russian
Russian
oil.
oil.
Mhm.
Russian oil. So we don't know. We don't know is uh, so it's partly a bargain tactic for Trump because he believes that, I mean, he has written about it, he has spoken about it, that the art of making a deal. So he believes that he's one of the world's best deal maker, and he thinks his tactics is, before you try to get a deal with anybody, squeeze that person so much that the
He is
person
compelled to. He is
is
compelled to
compelled
come to
to.
a deal with
Yeah.
you.
So if I want you to reduce tariffs or give me access, so the America, what does America basically want? America wants access to Indian market in certain areas which are actually close to foreign competition. And some of it is sanctioned by the WTO. For example, our agriculture. We say that we are a small farm agriculture. Our farmers are vulnerable. If we open up our agricultural market, it will affect our farmers' livelihoods. They will not be able to compete with global companies if they enter our agriculture sector. Similarly, for dairy, ours has been a very successful. India is today the world's largest milk producer because of the cooperative systems that we created around dairy, and our dairy business became a very successful business. And a lot of people depend on the dairy sector for their livelihood. Now, if we allow foreign competition in the dairy sector, because dairy is hugely subsidized in the US and Europe by their respective governments, the producers of dairy products, whether it is cotton cheese, whether it is milk, they can dump those products in Indian market at a much cheaper price. And it will devastate our dairy sector, which employs millions of people. Similarly, cotton. Cotton is again a very sensitive subject. These are the sectors where Donald Trump wants India to give access to American producers. And for India, it is economically uh, very tricky and politically very sensitive to give any access in these areas, which is why, which is why the deal talks were not making very good progress. And that's when he thought he will step up the gas, he'll put more heat and impose a penal 25%, not just a 25%, but a penal 25%. And he thought if he makes it Russian oil, it will have certain kind of a broad-based support elsewhere also, because he says that because India buys Russian oil, it allows Russia to get the money that it needs to fund the war against Ukraine. And one of the reasons why he has done it also is, and which actually came out yesterday, that he is now going forward to tell Europe that if you support Ukraine, you must impose sanctions on India for buying Russian oil. So he's not only he has imposed 50% tariff on you, he's also rallying, mobilizing people against you. So that's part of his bargaining tactics.
Now, the thing is, say, the political sovereignty of a country. It's a politics is so close, economics is so closely linked with politics. So the political sovereignty of a country is very important for their economic policies.
Mm.
Now, as you have explained a little while ago, that okay, in the apparel industry and also in say in our farming, particularly dairy industries and dairy products and things. So, because of our cooperative systems, these are very successful, and it has actually contributed a lot to our economy. Now, thing is that if our political leadership is not strong, if the political leadership doesn't have the guts to say no to the foreign, you see, influence and the foreign intervention, then how is it going? Will it not affect our economy, indigenous our economy in the country?
Absolutely. I think in all of this, there has been I mean, you can say a failure of sorts on the part of our leadership uh, on several counts. Uh, First of all, I think our leadership completely misread Trump. Global diplomacy and diplomatic negotiations do not, they get somewhat influenced and shaped by individual to individual relationship, but they are governed more by various other factors. And if they are not taken care of, no matter what relationship you may have between two individual leaders, you may still end up uh, in a situation where you would find, things going wrong. Now, let us take the case of what is today the situation and what is the extent of failure our leadership has had. Over the past 25 years, India and the United States have transformed their relationship into a strategic relationship. There has been a status change in the relationship between India and the US. And it has been all these 25 years referred to as a strategic relationship. Now, in a strategic relationship, can you justify such a unilateral move by one party? No. If you have a strategic relationship, even when things go wrong, there must be that strength, understanding, and wisdom in that relationship. You should be able to sit across the table and negotiate. So clearly, I think our leadership, somewhere along the line, went terribly wrong in assessing Trump and also in doing its own homework. I think one of the reasons why this trade deal could not make the progress that one expected is that my own assessment is that we did not put in enough homework. Third, I think the relationship that everybody talks about, how Prime Minister Narendra Modi has a great chemistry with Donald Trump, I think that chemistry has gone horribly wrong in the past few months.
I actually, while talking to you, and it is slowly actually, I'm absorbing things slowly. Now, this relationship between Donald Trump and our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it looks very fast. It looks very fast. It looks very superficial because the relationship, the way you decide the policy of a country, you actually economics of a country, or say the foreign relationship with a country, another country, it depends on so many things, isn't it? So many things. Because trust building, friendship, if a country is in need, if a country is in dire circumstances, then you do a little bit of compromise and then you come forward to help the country. I remember actually when in late 60s and 70s, when India was suffering badly for the want of foodstuff. Then India exported things from the US.
Imported under TL,
Yeah, important, important.
under
I'm sorry.
TL
Yeah, yeah,
480.
important. India imported things from the US, and there was a saying that it is not hand to mouth; it is ship to mouth, because unless the US ships with grains, you see, wheat and other things, don't reach our source, then there is a crisis, then there is a problem. But at the time when Indira Gandhi was the prime minister, she negotiated with the US, you see, high ups, with the presidents, with lots of self respect and dignity, and it went off, it went off well, and those were the days, very difficult days compared to those time. Now the time was, so far India was concerned, much favorable, because we are almost self-sufficient. I think we produce more foodstuff than we need to consume, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, I think you said something very nice. You said that even when we were economically not so self-sufficient or resilient, or rather economically vulnerable, even then our political leadership could keep its dignity intact and negotiate, um, and ask for help. Today, when we are economically doing much better, we are much more resilient. What is more important, that the Indian diaspora, particularly in US, is also very powerful. Even then, even then, uh, to have a situation where your leadership says that India on its own decided to go for a ceasefire with Pakistan, but the President of the United States, not once, not twice, 42 times, he has repeated that he threatened, and that's why you went for a ceasefire. In other words, he is clearly saying every time that you didn't make a sovereign decision then. I imposed the decision on you. So
This, this that's
that's
very, yeah, that's very vital. And now, though I had some set questions, but now I'm deviating from the set questions. Now here, see, the president of the US, he said that, and it is in public domain. Everybody knows that he repeated in 40 times, and even for once, our prime minister, who used to say that he has a very warm relationship with Donald Trump, he has not even mentioned once that no, Donald Trump is not telling the truth. He's saying no, nobody has intervened, but he didn't say that Donald Trump is wrong. Did he say so?
no, and that is why only in India we hear the media saying that Donald Trump is lying, while the whole world, across the world, the narrative that has gone around is that the US intervened and stopped the fight. Unfortunately, that's how the narrative has gone.
And
But
and
that's
and
not.
we and another thing now when this when America has imposed, the US has imposed 50% tariff rate on, say, Indian goods imported to their country. Now, what is the response? What is the response of the Indian government? How our government, how the government of India has responded to it?
So efforts are still on. You must have seen yesterday there were news reports that um, uh, channels are open for talks. Obviously, those efforts will continue. So there are a couple of things that are happening. I think yesterday the Federation of Indian Exporters Organization took a delegation to meet the finance minister, because for exactly the kind of problems that they would face, which I explained, taking the example of textiles. Then there are furniture, bedding, mattresses, which we also export a lot. We export a lot of auto components. We export a lot of machinery and mechanical appliances. And what is it we export the most? One single item that has not been affected. And
What is
why?
that? What is
Smartphones.
smartphone? Another thing, I just want to quickly, if you can, before we discuss in details its implications, why have they actually exempted certain things?
Precise. No, that's what I was coming to it. So you see, Trump knows where America's interests lie. So, these smartphones, mostly they are exported from Apple's facility in South India, okay, Bangalore. Now, if he levied the same kind of duties, then the American consumer won't have forgiven him. So, because the Americans buy mostly Apple. They use mostly Apple phones. Now imagine an Apple phone costing 50% more. And in this case, there is no other competing country, because it's Apple's facility in Bangalore exporting to Apple's market in US. So there has been zero penal tariff on smartphones. Zero. Smartphones, there is no MFN tariff also on smartphone. So smartphones exported from India don't attract any duty in the US market.
And there are some other items also. I think automobile items, cars and things.
Uh, on auto components,
Ah,
which is also again very critical to the US auto industry. Okay, because otherwise they will become solely dependent on China. So earlier there used to be 1% tariff, and that's where another additional tariff of 25% has been levied, not 50%. So the total tariff is 26% now on auto parts, which is medium, which is okay, right? Smartphones, biggest thing is pharmaceuticals. American people are hugely dependent on low cost generic drugs exported from India. We export nearly $10 billion worth pharmaceuticals to America. We export $10.6 billion worth smartphones. The next item is pharmaceuticals. And Donald Trump knows that that's a very sensitive sector. So again, pharmaceutical is where there is zero duty, no MFN duty, no additional duty, zero duty. Third category, Americans love their cars. They are fuel guzzlers. So on petroleum products, there has been no additional tariff. Reliance exports a lot of petroleum products to the US. Okay. So there is a 6.9% MFN duty. There has been no additional duty. So wherever the American consumer's interest is going to be directly hit, he hasn't touched them. He has
this,
touched those.
yeah, yeah. Don't you think it's very immoral, unethical?
Well, I mean,
Because you see, when you are discussing these things, what I'm saying that okay, economy is all, yes, it is all about balance and equilibrium. But when someone can be so selfish, I'm
I,
saying the
I,
word selfish.
I won't bring in morality and ethics into matters related to trade, because trade is primarily, it's about bargain, it's about exchange, it's about negotiation. Uh, if had it been business practices, you can talk about ethics. Okay. Uh,
But it is in a way, it is not
I mean, you can
completely
you
cut
can
off
bring in
from
principles.
business practice.
You can bring in principles, right? There are certain principles you need to adhere to, and obviously, Trump doesn't adhere to any principle. So, be that
He
as it
doesn't follow any principles,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, be that as it may, I mean, if you want, we can, where do we go forward? So, what I was trying to say is that uh, you asked about response. So, one is, of course, you will need to continue to negotiate with the US trade officials, because US is a very big market for you. You just can't let it go like that. And this uncertainty has to end. There has to be certain degree of predictability and assurance that our businesses, our exporters would need. And, you know, saying that, we won't do anything, or I mean, there are some people who say, why can't India levy higher tariff on US? Now, those people probably don't understand. We hardly import any consumables from US, so it really makes no difference. Okay, and where they want your market is where they have it, right? They're selling Boeing planes to you. They're selling Microsoft products to you. Their Google is doing fabulous business here. Their Meta is doing fabulous business here. So they don't worry about it. So therefore, Donald Trump hasn't also touched services also. But those sectors where, if any of these sectors, be it apparel, be it steel, be it organic chemicals, some of these sectors which are seeing very high tariff rates, if their consumers in US start complaining, huh, or if their consumers are getting affected, then what you may see that the Americans will start slowly conceding. They will do it very quietly. Okay. So some of these tariff hikes may get undone also in the due course of time. And alongside those negotiations can go. And while they do it, they will try to also extract some concessions from you in terms of access. So, for example, yesterday we lifted the duty on raw cotton import. Okay, we said that this is relief to. We are doing it as relief to our textile producers, but actually, truth is, we US also wants you to give access to your market as far as its raw cotton is also concerned. So we have also signaling. And look, any trade negotiation is also give and take. It is never one-way street. It's a two-way street. So you also have to think about where you can also give some if you want to get some. So that's part of the business.
No,
But
no, yeah, please.
the most important thing is, because of the sectors that have directly and immediately gotten hit. And that's why I have been talking about textiles, carpets. We export a lot of carpets, $1.2 billion. Auto components, I said, shrimps, uh, and for example, and this machinery and mechanical appliances, that's also a very big number. That's almost $7 billion worth. These products we export. And these are all labor intensive sectors. So we have a serious problem that if the companies faced with the uncertainty and unpredictability start cutting down on production, start laying off people, some of them have started doing actually that, then we have a problem on hand. So therefore, the government has to move in quickly, come up with certain interim protection measures. There are indications in today's news that after the meeting with the Federation of Indian Exporter Organizations delegation, the finance minister seems to have assured that the government will do something. But at the same time, the news reports said that finance ministry officials said there is no rush. Actually, there should be rush. You should quickly move in, do something where livelihoods are not affected. So that's the second response that the government can do and should do. The third is what you need to very wisely, smartly, and strategically move to find common grounds with countries like China, Russia, Brazil, the BRICS formulation, which you had abandoned because you trusted Trump so much, you must go back to it. You must go back to it. That's a more reliable alliance, time-tested alliance than Quad or any of those things that you have entered in recent years. Our relationship with US is strategic. You must try to preserve it, but not at the expense of your own interests, not by leaning only on the chemistry that lies between two individual leaders, but with robust homework, smart negotiation, and lastly, you must look internally what is happening to your economy. Today we are more vulnerable because our economy is not in such a great shape. Had our economy been in a great shape, then it kind of adds to our bargaining power. It also changes the perception that people outside have. Maybe people are able to say all these things, do all these things because they think that economically today you are vulnerable. So we have been talking a lot that we are fourth largest economy, third largest economy, but the fact of and we have got a chair at the global high table, but the fact of the matter remains we are still a developing country. We are not part of the developed bloc. So the way Trump will deal with Japan, China, Russia, or Europe, he's not going to deal with you in the same way. But we think that we should be, we should talk with that kind. I mean, we can be received on that kind of a parity. That's not happening. We see that that's not happening. So we need to be a lot more realistic, lot more humble, lot more grounded, and we need to build our own economic resilience. Okay, so Atmanirbhar Bharat must go beyond just being a slogan and
Slogan,
be a
slogan.
reality.
So now, if I have to, now, if we have to, I have to wind up this discussion.
Yeah.
Then, so can we say that first thing, how do we deal with this extraordinary tariff imposed by the US? First thing, we need to have a relook at our, own economy. Our own economy. First thing is that our own economy must expand. It must flourish. That's number one. Number two, you should not be we shouldn't be only depending on the US. We should try to explore possibilities of doing business with other countries apart from the US. Of course, US, we have as you said, we have a strategic relationship with US. I'm not we should be ignoring US, but at the same time, so far trade and commerce, all these things are concerned, we should try to explore possibilities in other countries. And third thing is that even with the US, we should try to explore possibilities. We should not actually stop the door of negotiation. We should negotiate. But I think we need to do it fast because otherwise, our domestic market, the domestic economy, is going to be affected very, very badly. So we need to do it, we need to act very fast, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, yeah. So thank you very much for your, thank you very much for your, this explanatory things, and even certain things were not clear to me earlier. Now, I would not say that I have understood everything properly, but at least since the beginning of the interview, now at least I know certain things, that okay, where things have gone wrong and what we urgently need to do. So thank you very much. I'll be coming to you again on such matters because it is a very interesting things. Now when one tries to understand thinks economics, it's really become very, very interesting, and I enjoy it.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And with your permission, if I can appeal to your audience, if you want to hear me more on policy issues and geopolitics and geoeconomics, uh, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Rajesh underscore Mahapatra,
Okay.
Mahapatra. And I hope your audience like this show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Bye bye.